Welcome to NYC Jewelry Week 2022. We're the co-founders. I'm JB Jones.
And I'm Bella Naiman.
And we're really excited to welcome you to our official YouTube page and our official virtual program for 2022. Please go hit subscribe. And also please head to our website at NYCJewelryWeek.com to check out all of our other amazing programs in person and virtually. And now Bella's going to introduce what's coming up next.
Thanks, JB. We're really excited for this program, moderated by Juliette de la Rochefoucauld, who's the author of Women Jewelry Designers. This program is part of our Female Forces series. We're really excited to have Juliette here. And if you have a question for Juliette or any of the other incredible designers on this panel, feel free to drop them a line and we'll make sure that they get it. Sit back and enjoy. Thank you.
So I think the best thing for me to do is just to say welcome everybody and welcome to my 4 great jewelry designers who are with us today. And we are going to be talking about female forces and about each of our jewelry designers' achievements and obstacles as they started up in their world as a jewelry designer. Many of them have come from different backgrounds to become a jewelry designer. So I would like to just introduce you to Paula Crevoshay, who used to be an artist and sculptor, and Luz Camino, who has been a jewelry designer and involved with jewelry for a long time and is very much an artist herself. And then we have Neha Dani, who has become a jewelry designer in India and is actually very much using contemporary materials, which perhaps is not the norm in India, but she will talk to us more about that as we go along. And of course, there's Lydia, who started out as a biochemist and then as an antique dealer. And then she became a jewelry designer and has been a jewelry designer for the last 30 years. So it's been really wonderful to have you all here. And so I think I'll start you off asking Paula, how did you become a jewelry designer?
Well, it's a very interesting story. I dabbled in jewelry design in undergraduate school, and I just dabbled. I loved it. I'd always loved jewelry. And whenever my boyfriends asked me what I wanted, I would say jewelry. And so I've always loved it. But I was living in India for 4 consecutive years without coming home due to my first husband, my late great George Crevoshay, was a PhD in Buddhist philosophy and linguistics, and he was fluent in 7 Asian languages with different scripts, and he was an accomplished composing musician and just an utter genius. And he was responsible for flipping me from my painting and sculpture into the jewelry world. And how that happened, he was doing some research in Burma, and he was on a high mountaintop in a very ancient holy place overlooking thousands of stupas dedicated to the Buddha. And he met a man, happened to be American, and he said, "What are you doing in the middle of Burma? You're obviously American. What are you doing here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm investing in a ruby mine." So of course, George said, "Can I come along?" And the guy said, "Yes." Well, George could acquire any skill he wanted. He was that brilliant. And since he had all the languages, he could speak the mine owners' languages and make them laugh and all of that. So that flipped me into eventually saying to him, "George, we're piling up all these gemstones. I'm an artist. I can design jewelry. So why don't I do that to help you out?" And it took over my life.
Well, we can see that certainly in your jewelry, and we can see the artist in your work, because you can see that you are obviously an artist first, a painter first, and then a jewelry designer. It's extraordinary, just your color combinations that come out. Luz, how did you get into the jewelry world and specifically into working with cliquet-jour, which seems to be one of your great artisan techniques?
Well, it's funny because my beginning it's a little like Paula's beginning, because it was because my husband told me one day that why I wouldn't do jewelry, because I would be very able to do it, and it was just a casual circumstance, and so this is a little bit how I start, because before that I never thought in my life to be a jeweler, so it's a little bit like Paula, thanks to our husbands. that we are doing this. It's very funny, but it's very casual.
But Luce, you also came to Paris and you studied in Paris. And what was that
a little
about?
bit. Yeah, well, my father sent me to Paris to learn French, and which I more or less did. And since I was there, he decided I had to do something. So I joined the how do you call
L'École des Beaux-Arts?
L'école de design
Don't worry. It'll come back later on. Mm-hmm.
The design, the designer dresses. I mean, how do you call the
fashion school.
The fashion school. Okay, I couldn't find the name.
Okay.
Sorry.
And Neha, for you, for instance, coming from India, did you study at university, or was this something that has been building up since childhood, since you were working, visiting lots of museums and galleries?
So I completed my bachelor's in commerce as an educational background, but I was fortunate to travel a lot. My father was an avid traveler, and we really traveled the globe. As kids, I was exposed to cultures in Europe. We visited China. We had a really long trip to Australia. So on all these travels, we visited lots of museums, and we spent a lot of time looking at the curios. So the detailed working, making timeless pieces, I mean, just timeless artifacts is something which kind of really caught my attention and became like a very passionate thing. I mean, I always wanted to work with my hands and always bring in something into the world which would be timeless and which would be so detailed and beautifully crafted and made. So, I mean, I have no jewelry background. I didn't come from a family which was into gemology, jewelry or gemstones. So for me, my career started with going to GI soon after my graduation in commerce. And it was very unheard of in like 25 years back for girls from India to go all the way to the US to study the gemology, which is not in the family. So for me, it was like, I feel like the career found me. It's been a beautiful journey since then, being, an entrepreneur and being, and I think because I didn't have a jewelry background, I had the freedom to choose. I didn't have to fit into a pre-designed style of the company or something. So I had the freedom to explore, experiment, and find my own style of expression. And that's why I do a lot of three-dimensional work. Everything is very sculpted. I use the age-old techniques of wax carving, where it gives you the freedom of complete expression and maneuvering your designs and, making it as voluminous and fluid. And I work with new metals like titanium, so it's super light and it gives you the advantage of being really creative. You're not worried about the weight of the piece. And it has such beautiful colors that it can be anodized into. Yeah. So it's just, and being a gemologist, I think I studied each gemstone as a formation of the earth, as a crystal structure. So honestly, I'm really fascinated by each and every gemstone, and I like to use different gemstones in my work, irrespective of the intrinsic value of the stone. So I've not limited myself to just the really forced, precious, stones. You see a lot of different variety of gemstones in my work, and I think that's making it more and more beautiful.
Yes, yeah. I think that's something that which you all have, is the variety of gemstones that you actually use in your work. Some of them are so unusual that, I've never even heard of them. I know that Lydia uses a lot of gemstones. Lydia, I remember learning about phosphosiderite with you, for instance. And you started from a very different aspect in your career before you became a jewelry designer, didn't you?
Yes, I was working in a laboratory I'm graduate in biochemistry, in hematology, and biology, and cytology. And by luck, I met people in the antique jewelry business. And I fall in love with this new business for me. And since my youngness, I collect stones. So after this meeting with these people, I got gemology, GIA, you say, gemology diploma. And then I opened my own business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to now just ask you several just general questions. And so I think we'll just have a conversation together. For instance, did any of you immediately know what style you were going to bring to your jewelry designs? Or was this something that just happened progressively over time?
I had no idea what I was going to do at the beginning. I just learned how to make this jewelry after 5 years of the school of designing jewelry, and then little by little, I think we all the family are very near gardens and flowers, and I have two brothers and sisters that are landscaping designers. And I don't know, my father was very much involved with plants, and then I think it's the moment when I started to be more near all this nature and try to bring nature into the jewelry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I also knew what I wanted to do from the very beginning because I am an artist, and I approached my jewelry design as an artist. I only make one of everything for a 40-year period. So when I first began, I had very small money, and my father taught me to be highly conservative. So I thought, I was so naive, I thought, well, women get a wedding ring. They're not going to buy as many rings as they will earrings. They have to wear their wedding ring. And so I only designed earrings initially, all one of a kind, and all handmade, all hand drawn by me with my signature. And then I slowly began having museums, shops start to buy my work. Like they would call me in Boston and say, Paula, we're having a Monet exhibit. So can you come down with all your opal jewelry? And they would buy my work, and so would estate jewelry designers, because all of my techniques were like granulation, hand piercing, engraving, just, the artistry of goldsmithing itself was my passion. And then I just kept getting larger and bigger, winning awards, and museums started to buy my work. So it was always museum oriented.
Yes.
It's just interesting. It's just my path, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Neha? Your jewelry at the beginning, if I am right, it was very natural. It was very much inspired by nature. And then you've gone into so much abstraction, which I love, but it's very different from your first collection.
I think for me as an artist, I'm always evolving. I feel I'm always trying to challenge myself as to what can I bring new? How can I make my new work look really different from my pieces earlier? I feel I like to, I'm very experimental by nature. The daringness that I had to, that I was ready to, I had to really sort of fight my family to take up this career. So I think the daringness of living by myself in Mumbai, trying to experiment, setting up my own career. So all that experimentation and daringness, I think, is now sort of directed towards my work. So every time that I'm back in the workshop every morning, it's always like as if I'm a starting point again. And I'm thinking, what else can I do? What else can I dabble in? And but I think the connecting thread in my work is every form is very fluid. It's really three-dimensional. It gets bolder, but it's still very feminine. So I work with a lot of negative spaces, like creating a lot of volume, but I mean, every time I'm trying to trying something new.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think slowly I want my collectors to start appreciating my work for that newness in it,
Yes. Well, that's wonderful. And Lydia, your work is so distinctive as well. Was this something? Hello, Lydia?
Yeah.
Oh, she's gone.
Yes, she's gone.
Lydia, hello. You're back
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Lydia, I was just saying that your work is so distinctive. Was this a style that you started off with right at the beginning, or is this something that's come with time?
Oh no, at the beginning it was very simple and basic. But I don't consider me as an artist. I think jewelry, it's a collective, une œuvre collective,
Yes.
So I don't think, I think I'm just designer of my own story.
Teamwork.
Yes, for me, jewelry is teamwork,
Yeah.
And but of course, I change a lot, and I love to go ahead and to discover and to let the people discover new universe and new story, and it's a pleasure, and I hope they're happy to for that also. But of course, it's very different from the beginning.
Yeah, and at the very beginning, you were using a lot of cameos, weren't you? Which perhaps weren't being used before.
Yes, most of the pieces was second life of the cameo of a stone coming from the old pieces and brooch, old brooch, and recycling pieces.
Yes.
Then I said I did very, very big wing, very big flowers, but of course now it's not at all what I like to do.
Very different.
Yes.
Yes. So this is very interesting. Now I've got a question for each of you, which I'd love to ask you. And I think I'd like to ask Luz this question. Your work is shown in galleries and in Tefaf, for instance, in Maastricht, and also in Bergdorf and Goodman in the United States. Do you feel that showing your pieces in the galleries and for special events has helped you create your brand, your style of jewelry, or have you felt that it's come from something else?
Well, I think it helped a lot actually, because that becomes much more visual. Like so many more people that can see my jewelry. I'm in Tefab, or I'm in Par, or Maastricht. It really helps. And when you are, for example, in Maastricht, everything is so beautiful that it's wonderful to be surrounded by beautiful things. And I think people that goes to Maastricht, there's people that are connoisseur of all kind of arts. So of course it helps a lot.
And what, Luz, what brought you to plique-à-jour enameling?
I think plique-à-jour is very special because it brings you a lot of things for variety of colors and shades, and it's very light, it's not heavy, and it brings a lot of natural kind of touching, touching and seeing the jewelry. I think I like very much to mix plique-à-jour with the stones, gemstones, whatever gemstones is, and it gives me really a big pleasure to work with plique-à-jour. And of course, Lalique did so many beautiful things in plique-à-jour that really is someone which I think a lot.
Yes. I mean, I love the idea that sometimes you've even worked in your kitchen creating resins, and I think even one of your pieces from your kitchen has
poppies.
ended up in the Musée des Arts Décoratifs, for instance.
Right, yeah, right. The poppies were made in my kitchen. That's
Yes.
true. Yeah. Someone gave me some sort of grains of from it was from Chile. Brought me some little lentils in just like that, like
grains of resin, which look
grains,
which are a bit
yes,
like
it was a resin
lentils.
transparent because it's very, very, very light, but it's very, very transparent with very nice color. And when I had that, I started to just play with that, and I would make them in my kitchen. It's true, and I made the number of.
I think it's wonderful because it means everything is possible.
Yeah, everything is possible. The number because our big series out of 100, so I made 100 poppies in my kitchen.
Yes, no, wonderful.
With the years.
But what's interesting between you all is that you all have pieces in museums, and it's quite extraordinary. You've all come through your careers, and many of the museums all around the world have picked up your pieces. And Paula, you, for instance, you've made this a speciality of yours, haven't you? And that you expose much of your jewelry in scientific museums and natural history museums.
Yes, and that's interesting story how that evolved. At first, I wanted to help my fellow carvers. The North American Gem Carvers Association was formed. It's my generation who put America on the map in Europe where it had never been before. My generation was so unique in their carving and so out of the box that it became really, really very famous, very popular. But I wanted to put it into a time capsule. So what I did is I went to all the different carvers that I really admired and respected and asked them to memo me 3 to 5 of their best stones. I would make the design and get it into a major museum to put us on the map together, that this is our generation. And it was very, very well received by the Carnegie Museum of Natural History. Right. And then I was at an event, and the former director of the museum was attending this exhibition and lecture in Pittsburgh. And when I got upstairs, he whisked me around and turned and he said, "You have got to come to my home for lunch tomorrow." And I'm like, "Well, I'm busy." He said, "It's okay. You have to come just for an hour." And so I said, "Okay, I'll carve it in." And he invited me to mount a one-woman show for the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, because he was so in love with my flowers and how I made them look very anatomically correct, but in such a creative way. And he grew orchids, and at my seat at his lunch table was a scented orchid in my honor.
Wonderful.
I mean, it's just magical. And then the museum started inviting me. And right when I had my one-woman show in Paris, I had, right after that, I was seated at a luncheon in LA County Museum of Natural History. That came next. I think I've had 6 or 7 one-woman shows in museums. Right. And we were having a luncheon, a gratitude luncheon for all my loaners, because as all the other women here, if you only make one of a kind, and certain pieces take you 1 year to produce because there's 1,000 gemstones set in many of my pieces, that's the case. Yes. I have to borrow them because I won't have enough if I don't borrow some of my patrons' pieces. And we were having a luncheon, and I seated a friend at our table. There were about 20 tables of luncheon to say my gratitude to my collectors and things. And Kim Wagner was there, And she had to go and leave suddenly because of her flight. And I told Chris to help Kim with her luggage so she could make her flight. And she looked at me and she said, Paula, when you're ready for Perot's ready for you. And I said, I already have my next theme, Kim. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. So my last exhibition was at Perot. It came down a few months ago.
Wonderful.
And there were about 75 works of art, but I organized them by the 7 crystal systems because I'm as much interested in nature, art, and science simultaneously.
Right.
And that's one thing that the Museums of Natural History love about me, because one gentleman said to me, Paula, your work is highly educated because it's not just a piece of jewelry. It has nature, it has art, it has science. And that's my passion.
Right.
My dad was a great scientist, and I have a little bit of him up there. Just a little bit.
That's fabulous. So, Lydia, for instance, what would you say was your greatest obstacle that you had to overcome to become a jewelry designer and recognized jewelry designer?
Could you repeat? Excuse me.
What was the greatest obstacle that you had to overcome to become a jewelry designer or to become recognized as a jewelry designer?
I don't understand the question.
Well, sometimes there are events in our lives which make it easy for us. For instance, if we win a prize for our jewelry, and sometimes there are obstacles which make it difficult for us to move to the next stage.
Well, for me, I'm happy actually with what I do with my customer. I'm very happy. It's very nice because we have a reconnaissance, you know, in the business. Many people know my works.
Yes.
And I think it cannot be better. I'm happy with that. You know, I don't have to have more. What can I have? More money. I don't care.
So, Lydia, for instance, your boutique is right beside the Place Vendôme.
Yes.
So, how has that helped you? Has this been a hindrance to your brand, or has this been a great help being close to, I suppose, the famous jewelry houses in the Place Vendôme?
Oh, there is a very, very big competition.
Right.
In the past, they ignore me totally. And now I can see they try to, we have the same customer, you know, so they try to keep their customer. For example, when Chanel or Vuitton invite their customer, their customers spend time with me, and they want to know what they buy to try to keep them totally, you know. It's very, very difficult to be close. And by another way, it's a point of, if a center of attraction also. You know, both. It's on one way it's nice, on one way it's not nice at all, because you are the woman to be killed.
Yes.
And I cannot be, for example, now in the newspaper, because all the newspapers like Vogue and Elle and so on are property of a big group like Richemont, LVMH, and so on.
Yes.
So they don't want independent in the magazine, and this is a problem too.
So this problem, has this also been a problem, for instance, Neha, when you started out, is finding the workshops to do the work for you? I know you sculpt your waxes, for instance, but I know that for a lot of jewelry designers, certainly in Europe, I don't know about the United States, is that young jewelry designers find it difficult to find a workshop to work with them. Is this something that you've come across?
This is a constant challenge. I'll tell you more so because we make one-of-a-kind pieces. So, and each piece is quite complex and it's very time-consuming. It needs, I mean, from a wax carving, it's first casted in silver. The detailing is done on a silver model and then it's casted into metal.
Yeah.
So for every fabricator, he feels like the time and effort that he's spending to make just one piece, it's not worth his time, you know. I mean, he feels that he can make maybe 10 easier pieces for another, you know, less complex design for another client. So it is harder, and the work takes time, and then you're never a priority for a manufacturer. A fabricator is always, I mean, he's never really super happy getting your work, because if there were multiples made, then his time going into developing the product can be validated. So it's a constant challenge, and I think it's going to get more and more challenging, because the industry has moved a lot into computer-aided designing. So there are fewer workshops who can actually handle the traditional way of jewelry making. And I think in the pandemic, lots of workshops have lost the senior craftsmen. They've lost craftsmen who went back to their villages and don't want to come back to the city. So I personally feel the kind of creative jewelry that we are making today, I mean, going forward, maybe 10 years from now, it will be very, very difficult. 5 to 10 years from now.
Yeah. I think, isn't that something, Luz, do you have the same problem in finding the right artisans, the right workshops to work with you? Is there a sort of turnover?
Well, sometimes it's difficult and challenging also, but little by little I get managed with all that. In the beginning, I started with a boy that was at the school with me, and then very early start working for me. Then I also had my teacher, who was a genius, and he unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And he did the most outstanding works with his hand. Was absolutely a genius, and he had the good luck and chance to have some of my jewelry made by him. And today I go so and one comes, and some of them they don't want to continue because, as Neha says, it's not so good to earn money, you know. So it's difficult, but well, I get along more or less without.
Right. And Lydia, talking about or CAO and the CAD that Neha was talking about, that's something that you're worried about, is that about these this computing which is taking over a lot of design.
You talk about the way we make the
not the way that you make it, but it's something that you talked to me once about, was that with new computer aided design, that it was a problem for designing itself, that a lot of these algorithms were designing in themselves and not using somebody from outside, a jewelry designer. Non? Non, je veux dire que vous m'avez dit que il y avait un moment que les algorithmes sur l'ordinateur étaient tels que on avait un problème de plagiarisme.
Oui, bien sûr. Oui, I had a big trouble with computer and with plagiat, of course, a lot. And also, they take my email address, pirater l'email, etc. Yes, it was a very big trouble. And but now I think it's a little bit more quiet.
It's calmer.
Yes. No.
So I mean, for the four of you, you are four wonderful jewelry designers. Each of you have a very specific way of designing. So how do you actually try to fight against plagiarism and other people copying your work? For instance, Lydia.
My problem is I had a file with designer workshop, and the problem they when you go against somebody, you have to furnish the date, tell the date when you did it, and so on. And when you give the date, they can antedate. You know what I mean?
They can change their date and put
They
it
change
before
their
yours.
date, and they change. They put a wrong invoice and Photoshop. For example, they put a picture of a ring instead of another one to prove that they did before you, which is not possible because it was in your head. It was not possible to copy what you have in your head, you know.
Yeah.
And this we have to be very careful now when you want to attack somebody to the court, because judges are so busy that they don't read everything.
Read the file, yeah.
Yes, and this is a problem now because with Photoshop, and when they supply the photocopy, not the original, they can put white, change the date. What happened to me? Yes.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
For plagiarism, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Luce, is this a problem for you, plagiarism and people copying your work?
Not. I don't think it's a problem for me.
No, great.
I don't know if I have been
Wonderful.
ever copied a lot, but I think not. And I think if someone copies your work, it's never going to be the same. And also, I think that it's maybe because it's a nice design. I mean, it's, the approval of that you have designed something very well and very good.
Yes.
So I never mind a lot about that problem.
In your work, Luce, for instance, you use a lot of patina, don't you? You use a lot of copper in your work as well as other materials.
Yeah, I use every material, every metal, and every gemstone, and every a stone or a shell in the beach, and platinum and gold and silver, and of course bronze. And sometimes now titanium also. So everything goes. I think I like, and sometimes I like to mix everything, which is sometimes is very difficult to solder. How do you say soldering? The solder fuse one with the others, because they are different heat and all that.
Yes.
Sometimes it's very difficult, but I like to mix.
Metals, yes. And is that a problem for you if you are showing your pieces in France, for instance? Because quite often in France, they prefer just one metal.
Oh, no. Not
Okay.
up now. No, I don't know. But for the moment, I never had problem.
Okay, wonderful. So, Paula, would you use other metals other than gold or white gold in your work?
In my career of 40 years, I've used mostly 22 karat gold or 18 karat gold.
Right.
And I also use platinum. I use white gold. When the design moves me that color is appropriate to what I'm creating.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to using, rose gold. I use all kinds of colors of metal, but I don't use copper and some of these others that we've mentioned. But I also am saddened to hear that people are having difficulty keeping master jewelers. That really, I'm not experiencing that at all. I did lose one brilliant man who was with me. Because he died of 90, like at 93, a couple of years back. But my workshops are still as talented and industrious and very happy. So I'm sad. I don't know what's going on that's causing it to be sluggish elsewhere. I'm sad to hear that.
Yeah. Lydia, is there something that you'd like to respond to on that? About the workshops?
My workshops? Yes, it's
Just in a general way, are you experiencing a problem in finding the artisans, the master artisans to help you with your work?
It's okay. I have 5 workshops working for me, and I choose them. For example, if I use enamel, if I use a very high quality stone about sapphire, ruby, and so on, it's better for me in Thailand, for example. I have a workshop in Paris for the special order, and also I have in Turkey. I have in Armenia one man making wonderful miniature, and they are very big artists, you know, more than me. I am the conceptor. I design, I make my drawing, and I ask. I did now do it, and it's what I'm very admirative, because the real, for me, the real artists are there. They are no, they are artists. Yes, I have a very nice team around me, and that's wonderful.
Yeah. So Neha, how did you move into titanium, for instance, for a lot of your work?
I think as I started visualizing more and more larger voluminous designs, and initially, a few of my works in gold was considered to be a little more heavy. And I mean, when I'm creating something, and you know, after all the work and after all the hard work, at the end of it, if you feel it's slightly heavy, and then people are, you know, hesitant to wear it because of its weight. So that's when I started visualizing. Started moving to titanium, so I don't need to worry about the weight of the piece. And you're really focusing on what you want to express and how you want to put it together. And you're less concerned about the weight especially for the earrings.
Right. Yeah.
And, you know, and once you start working with titanium, you start feeling that freedom of the volume and the weight, the balance.
Yeah.
And plus the beautiful colors of anodizing is like another color for it's another palette of colors where you can play with the gemstone color and the color of anodizing. So it just, I think it takes over you. It's more and more beautiful. I mean, I still have pieces in yellow gold and white gold and rose gold. And I worked with every color of diamonds as well. I mean, I have pieces in really intense pink diamonds and brown diamonds and shades of yellow diamonds. So I think with the experimental nature, I just dabble with different things. Like now I'm working a bit with carved gemstones.
Yes.
I worked with flat cut moonstones, which is a little unusual, where the pieces was first created in wax and then the shapes of the moonstones was cut to fit into the design. So it's just about trying out something new and different every time.
Absolutely. Great. And Paula, you use a lot of lapidaries, don't you, who are independent stone cutters and who are working at home, I suppose. But they all have very original ways of cutting their gemstones, don't they?
Yes, I have that section of my work which is dedicated to the art of lapidary art. I'm honoring that in my generation and time period because everything has its history. But I also have workshops all over like Lydia, both for gem cutting as well as workshops all over. And because I started originally with George the Genius, he was fluent, as I said, in all these Southeast Asian languages. And so I have dealers that founded the mines in moonstone mines in Sri Lanka 400 years ago that are still family generational. So it is very vital and very important to each one of us on this screen to have many hands. You have to have so many hands, especially if you're doing original works of art. And like we've all been talking about, some of our pieces take a year or two to build. In order to follow that dream and add our contribution to the fine, one of the oldest of the fine arts is goldsmithing and
Yes.
jewelry.
Mhm.
So we have to have a village, like they say. It
Yes.
takes a village,
Yes.
but it takes more than one village
Yeah.
if you're going to really get it out there, truly.
Mhm.
And I feel very blessed with all the hands that are behind me,
Yeah.
and I honor them.
Yeah. Luz, for instance, what would you say to any jewelry designer who's starting out today? Is there something that you would say that they have to specifically take care of?
I think I would tell them, try not to copy other jewelers, to trust in themselves, to have mind and open eyes all the time, and be confident in their work. I think it's what that's just for things that I think to me have been a big help, and it's what I have all my life tried to do. You know, when people tell you want a catalog, new catalog, Verdura, whoever, I said no, thank you. I really prefer not to be, you know, in anybody's way of doing jewelry. I prefer just try to be myself and believe in myself and my things. So this is what I would tell all young. Actually, it's what someone often they ask me, how can they follow and how can they go on, how can they, you know, approach to continue jewelry, and I always tell them the same. Be true to yourself and don't try to, you know, to copy others.
And Nia, for you, for instance, you're in inverted commas the baby of everybody. What for you, as you know, you've been in the business now for about 10 years. How have you found it? Have you found it difficult? Have there been things that you would sort of advise a young jewelry designer to avoid or to do? Or
See, I think I would say, things have not been so easy and smooth sailing. I mean, it is challenging. The world is very competitive, and to stay true to yourself. And I think each one of us are here to contribute something unique to the world of jewelry. So we should stay really, you know, very true to what we want to bring into this world. And as she rightly said, not to copy other people's work, and you know, to create your own identity.
yes,
It would take time. You have to be extremely patient. And I think if you're really passionate about what you're doing, the patience just comes naturally. I mean, you're willing to do whatever it takes to kind of make what you really believe in and put it out there.
yes.
I mean, there are days where you really get disheartened, but I mean, if you know, I think the universal powers will then open the doors for you. So I think that's what I've experienced.
So just one other question, which is, sorry? Just one other question, which I find, which is interesting. At the beginning, how much time would you say you have to dedicate to designing, and how much time do you have to dedicate to sales and marketing? Paula?
I asked Martin that question this morning because I said, what do you think? And he said, I think you put much more time into sales and marketing than you have time for your creative juices. But what I've done, I don't know if you know, in circuses in America, there was a man that would spin plates, and he'd be spinning them all the way down to the end and running back to get the other one before it fell and broke on. And so that's kind of my life. I design. I have times where I'm in the studio only for hours and hours and design a collection of my one-of-a-kinds. And those masterworks are going to take 6 months to a year to 2 years to build. But I have them out in different workshops so that they can come in a little bit quicker. But it's true, the sales and marketing is very time consuming because I have to do a lot of personal appearances. And I don't mind that. I'm a very social animal, but I don't know what it would be if I could have more time in my studio. What would that look like? I cannot imagine.
Yeah. Lydia, do you have an idea how much time you spend on marketing and sales vis-a-vis designing?
Yes, I know. And, I have a rule. Every day I have to create something, at least one piece every day. So, but I have a team around me, and about marketing and so on, I do a little bit, but it's not my pleasure. So I am more in the creation than in the marketing, and I don't like to do personal appearance, for example. I don't like that. I don't like at all what is supposed to sell better. I'm a little bit wild. Yes. Too much.
Yeah.
But I have people better than me for that.
So, Luz, for you, is this a complication for you as well?
I don't. I like Lydia. Like Lydia, I don't like it very much, actually, and I don't think I have any kind of marketing at all. I mean, marketing is, when my jewelry goes to Maastricht, sometimes I go there one day, but I just leave the things there, So I think I'm quite bad at that.
Yeah,
it's not my cup of tea.
Yes, I think one seems to fall in love with this this wonderful world of creativity and innovation, and then somehow we realize that we've got to sell and get people to know about us, to learn about us, and it's very complicated and juggling all these different plates in the air, so to speak, Paula. And just one other question, because we've just got a little bit more time. Would you say that both men and women jewelry designers have faced the same problems today? Lydia?
As you know, my best customer, unfortunately, he died. And Karl Lagerfeld told me, jewelry is a woman affair. Only.
Wow.
And I'm sure of that, because only woman knows what the other woman wants. For me.
Yeah. Niha, what do you think?
I think it's today's day. I think it must be the same, because I think we've crossed a lot of hurdles. I think the world is definitely at its best in the history, what it has been till now. I mean, today, I think there is a lot of equality. And in our industry, in every front, there's a lot more women who's handling the sales, the PR, and, every aspect. Yeah. But we still see visibly more men designers, I think, because of the hardships involved. So maybe some people kind of leave their passion or have to step out because of their own, when you're raising a family and things like that. But I think the hurdles must be the same. I don't think it's easier for them or it's more difficult for us. Yeah. It's just getting more and more competitive. So I think it's just, but at the same time, we have more newer tools like social media, which has made it easier for us to be more visible to the world at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
And
Luz, have you found that there are obstacles or hurdles that you've had to overcome over your career?
Oh, I don't know exactly what you mean.
So, have you had to overcome any specific obstacles or hurdles in your career that you feel are general to other jewelry designers as well?
Yeah, I think so. It's the same for men and women, and I don't think I had difference in my life and in my work as a man. I think today is very much the same as Neha says.
Yeah. And so this is just throwing this out. What do you think about in many of the jewelry competitions that we have around the world, and there's always a category for men's jewelry. Do you think that that is relevant today, or should we really just be talking about jewelry in the sense that it can be worn by everybody? Paula. Sorry.
Well, I really believe in men's jewelry. All of my men are adorned with cufflinks and lapel pins and belt buckles and all of that. I've always created jewelry for men, and especially the ones that I love and marry and things like that, and my nephews. And, I think it's good. You can have all of it. You can have any gender and every gender these days. I'm just wide open, but I do think elegance in a man includes jewelry.
Right.
And especially ones. Okay.
Luce, you agree? Yes.
Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But for me, it's more difficult to create for men than women. And now I'm happy because they wear the woman jewelry. Wonderful. Because it's impossible.
I have a man that buys more jewelry for himself than his wife, but he loves to buy it for his wife. But he loves it, you know, and he commissions me. I have men that are just in love with jewels.
I was once in Bertha Goodman and in an afternoon, and then Valentino came to the store, and he bought so many bracelets, so many things that I was, and he tried them on. I don't know whether they were given to someone present, but I think no, it was for him. So I really believe that men are using more and more jewels, and when we remember old times, the kings, in India or in France, or all these kings, they used to wear much more jewelry than women. So women we have been after us almost everything after men.
Totally. And so, what do you feel, Neha, having the last say?
I think as we said, in India, we're used to seeing men, especially very grandly dressed up in jewelry on the wedding day. It's been a part of the Maharaja, from the Maharaja age, people really dressed up in a lot of jewelry on their wedding day. And it's very common to see parts of a lot of states in India, the ears are pierced and they still wear a earring in their ear. And I personally feel, I've created some very elaborate brooches, which I feel can be worn by both men and women. So, if something which is elegant, I think it shows the confidence of the man to be able to wear it. Yeah,
that's wonderful. I think that's a wonderful place to stop, confidence. I think that's something jewelry gives us all confidence, doesn't it?
Right.
We all feel wonderful when we have a beautiful piece of jewelry. And especially when it's honed for just the one-off piece, isn't that right? Does anybody have something else they'd like to say to the audience at large?
Oh yes, me. I can tell you, when you ask to the new generation what is the conseil we can give them, I think they have really to learn from the past to build the future, because we have the past is a mine of connaissance, and when you know very well the past, you know when you make creation or not. It's very important. And they have to go to the museum and to build their own taste, because we cannot say we create something. We create nothing. Only the nature is a creator, in the reality. Just for example, for me, in my stock, I can say maybe 10% of what I do is really creative, you know.
Right.
Otherwise, it's butterflies, it's the horse, it's flowers, and so on. So I have to say to the young people to learn from the past first.
To
I
study.
love that, Lydia. I think that's how I learned. You know, I was in Southeast Asia for a collective of about 16 years of my life, and in and out of all kinds of cultures and museums. I always carve in 2 art days wherever I'm traveling to. Every week I'm going there, here, there, and yonder, but I save time. I just saw the King Tut exhibit in Houston last week. It was phenomenal. But it's true, art history, I have a master's in the fine arts, and the art history has fueled my jewelry, as yours, Lydia. We both are storytellers, I feel, and we tell the story of the past and bring it forward. Do you agree?
Yeah, and when you have a strong storytelling, which now everybody is talking about storytelling, but when you have a strong one, people who come to you when you explain, when you use this material, and for example, inspired by travels, they love to discover a story behind the pieces. And it's why it's so difficult for me to have retailers, because most of the time they take my jewelry, but they don't explain because the sellers doesn't want to learn, or forget. And it's a shame when you make so much love and so much culture and so much knowledge in your pieces, as you can. Of course, I'm not Einstein, but that people cannot transmit. This is a problem, and I think culture is the first things to make jewelry.
Yeah. So true. Luce, do you have a word to say? Would you agree with that, or do you have something?
Of course, I agree with that. I think that museums are a wonderful place to see and to learn and see all the times jewels and persons, and I think this is important. But about that, I think I just want to thank you for doing this wonderful. I don't know how do you say it, meeting or conference or just conversation, nice conversation. I want to thank you.
Well, thank you so much, all four of you, for coming and joining me today for the New York City Jewelry Week. I think it's been a wonderful pleasure to have been asked to come and join in with Bella and with Chantel. And I do hope that we're all going to see each other very shortly, perhaps in real life. Who knows? That would be very nice. And in the meantime, I just wish to say congratulations for everything you've done so far. And I hope that you continue on with tremendous inspiration, and we will see lots of beautiful pieces coming from you in the next years. Many thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
from New York Jewelry Week.
No.